think. Here's our differences. So here's what Freud was advocating for. Here's what he said the cause of people's problems were. So deterministic. So there's these irrational forces, unconscious motives, biological drives and instincts, focused on the unconscious, that there's more going on below the surface. Remember the iceberg, there's more going on below the surface than above it. Problems come from poor management of the id, that there's a concentration on the past. So how you were in the past determins how you will be in the future. And the goal of that is to make the unconscious conscious. So Adler, on the other hand, was teleological, so goal-oriented view of human nature. This is probably one of the biggest contributions, I think, to the field, is that this idea that you can set a goal, plot a course from where you're at to that goal, and that people want to progress on. So I think that's really cool. Motivated by social relatedness, and so we're social beings. The people we hang with, our families, friends, coworkers, all of that goes into is a part of us. Focuses on the conscious. So remember, a lot of Freud's work was unconscious. So what's going on below the surface? Adler is like, yeah, that's great, but I want to focus on what's happening above it. That's what's really important. And so that's what Adler was. He spent his time on that. He didn't even get into the unconscious things. Problems come from feelings of inferiority. So that is something, it doesn't mean being superior to others, but what it does mean is that it's a movement from inferiority to feriority. So being in control of it, superior to that. And so getting it under control. So I didn't like growing up as a sickly child, but I worked hard. I did my, I don't know, let's say exercises, and I grew so much, like the walk-on recruit to the football team. He's got to lift weights and practice hard and eat right and get lots of sleep, do all of those things so that he can move from being inferior, sitting on the bench, to superior, being on the field every down, that kind of thing. Where the client is going is more important than where they came from. Past is somewhat helpful, but it's not defining of the person by any means. So we want to overcome feelings of inferiority. So Adler went on to give some more context, give some added context to his theory. And so individual psychology is a name that Adler coined kind of for this idea. So Adlerian and individual psychology, it's safe to say those are interchangeable. So in an interpersonal psychology, how individuals act with others is paramount. So this is that social connectedness piece. It's holistic. Humans can't be understood in parts. You must look at all of them. You must look at their support system, their histories, their all of these things. So it's very holistic. It's the entire picture. All behavior occurs in this social context. You can't study people in isolation. It's difficult to work with them, therapeutically in isolation, and so you need to have them interacting with their environment, and even having their social system be a part of their care. Self-determined. People are not determined solely by heredity, environment, those things, but they can move towards self-selected goals that they believe will give them a place in this world. And so this is a repeat of that major contribution, that setting goals can be very, very helpful. So lifestyle. So Adler called this an assessment. So this lifestyle assessment is really kind of like an intake in common day. So it is gathering background information. kind of said differently. So to understand the person, we must examine their cognitive organization and their lifestyle. So what all makes them up? This is that holism coming out. Things are not right or wrong, normal or abnormal, but they are. It's an attempt to understand this person's unique worldview, how they perceive events. Remember that becomes important. This is a major tool for understanding the person. So this becomes very, very, very helpful. The person's opinion of themselves and their world, along with their unique way of striving for the ideal goal. So this is, we're understanding the person too. We're having them talk about things, about their world, and the unique ways that they are attempting to overcome problems. People are resourceful. They want to heal. They want to feel better. They don't like being stuck, and so that's kind of that goes all hand in hand here. I love quotes. Here's one from Adler: "The life of a human soul is not a being, but a becoming." I think that's kind of cool. Strive to excel in one area to compensate for another, and so people will kind of self-select things that they are good at and deselect kind of without much thought things that they're not good at. And so for example, I knew that I had somewhat of a talent in music and playing the saxophone, and so that's what I did as opposed to playing football. I knew I wasn't very good at football. I knew that I was not going to be a basketball athlete in high school, but I didn't specifically say I'm going to do band over that. It just kind of I leaned very naturally to that, and that became part of my identity. And so that's kind of just sort of maybe an example